All right, everybody, so we're going to call the regular meeting of the Neshoba Regional School Committee to order at 6 p.m. And let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll stand and help it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on our business is citizens' comments, and not seeing anyone in the galley or gallery, except for our fantastic attorney Stoika back there, but no citizens' comments this evening, so we're going to move actually right to executive session. I'm going to look to my vice chair for a motion.
I move to enter into executive session at 6:01 p.m. pursuant to GL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, i.e. Purpose number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares for Unit A and C. Executive session to include the school committee, Superintendent Downing, Director of Human Resources, Anne-Marie Stoika, and Director of Finance, Russ Mulcairn. Committee will return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
So I'll second that because I do declare it is necessary. So, any discussion? All right, let's take the vote. All in favor?
No.
Roll call.
Roll call, dang it. Scott?
Yes.
Karen? Yes. Amy? Yes. Mike?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Sharon? Yes. Shondor?
Yes.
And Jackie? Yes. Are you ready? We are in executive.
Scott, maybe then you can feel good because the meeting might end before it officially starts.
All right, everybody, we're back in regular session, and we're going to continue on with our agenda. The next item is approving the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda of March 13th, 2024, containing draft meeting minutes of February 28th, 2024, draft meeting minutes of fiscal year 25 budget hearing / school committee meeting of March 6th, 2024, and the warrants of March 15th, 2024.
And I'll second that. Any discussion? Yes, Chandra.
On the minutes of February 28th, I actually abstained from the consent agenda. Vote for it.
All right, Sylvia, you can make that change.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Amy, are you amenable to that change for your motion?
Yes.
As am I. I seconded the motion. And Chandra. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, raise your hand. Okay, none opposed. We have the school committee chairperson update, and there's nothing specific there. Our student representative report, however, I don't see our student representative.
A little ahead of schedule, I think.
What did you say? Oh, we're
We're ahead of
early
schedule.
maybe? Is that what you mean?
So
All right,
it's
so-
scheduled for 6:50. It's only 6:26.
Do you think she's coming?
I didn't get any notice, so it's quite possible.
Okay. So if she arrives later, we'll just perhaps hear from her then, from Hansi then, or Eva. But we can now turn our attention to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that recognition. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you all again. A couple of superintendent reports here before we get into the business of the evening around our budget work and also Student Opportunity Act. First thing I want to share is annually the Worcester County Superintendents Association puts on a scholar luncheon to honor scholars at all of these school systems in Worcester County. And this year, Neshoba Regional School District's representative will be Jack London, a senior at Neshoba Regional High School. So I'm just going to read the report and put it out there into the record for our community to hear. On March 21st, I'll have the honor of joining Dr. Kate Boyton and Neshoba Regional High School senior Jack London at the Worcester County Superintendents Association Scholar Luncheon. Throughout his career, Jack has demonstrated strong performance by excelling in challenging courses such as AP Statistics and AP Physics C Mechanics. He has received recognition for his achievements, including the Columbia Book Award and the title of DECA State Champion. Outside of academics, Jack produces educational YouTube videos and tutors students in advanced math. His dedication to running has resulted in notable achievements, including completing a mile in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Jack values community service and leadership, actively contributing to his communities. His favorite quote, "Life is not a matter of holding good cards, but sometimes playing a poor hand well," reflects his resilient attitude towards challenges and opportunities for personal growth. So let us all congratulate Jack for his academic success and doing this as the Worcester County Superintendent. So congratulations, Jack. And with that, I am going to turn it to Assistant Superintendent Friend to talk about our Day of Professional Learning coming up. Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, Superintendent Downing. We are excited about our full day of professional learning on Friday. It's hard to believe March 15th is upon us. We're pleased to offer around 70 sessions for our faculty and staff, presented by Neshoba educators, students. So we have 2 students presenting a session on supporting neurodiverse learners in the classroom. They're very nervous, and their session was very popular, and it exceeded the limit, so they're going to have 30 teachers in their session. I told them they're going to do a great job. So super exciting about that. And just a side note, the origin of that session actually came about because of a civics project. In the spring, the students asked to meet with me on the topic, and we were talking about what teachers need to hear, and then we started talking about our full day of professional learning, and I said, would you be interested if I came back around to you next year to perhaps present? And they said yes, and so here we are. So it's exciting. Really proud of them. And also grateful for our Neshoba educators for sharing their talents. Our EMT cadets will also be sharing their knowledge and talents with hands-on CPR, and those sessions are full. So it's going to be a great day. We have full registrations from our faculty and staff, and we're going to begin the day with an opening session to focus on our Portrait of a Neshoba graduate competencies and what those competencies really look like in the real world from diverse sectors. So we have individuals from higher ed, the business world, the technology world. We have a graduate joining the panel, and the flyer I believe what had been shared with the committee, but I can include that in the comment update this week for our larger community to be aware of. The thinking behind the panel is the next step of our work from last year. So if you remember, our full day really supported the voices of our Neshoba graduates, and so this is bringing a different lens on the same topic to ground ourselves on the larger purpose of why we're here for kids. So we're thankful for our panelists who are actually donating their time and energy to engage in an interactive panel with us to start off the great day. So I would be pleased to share an update of Friday with the committee in the next couple of weeks once we receive the feedback, because we are asking faculty and staff for feedback as we typically do.
Great, thank you. And we'll take any questions.
Wonderful. I hope you all received Flora's email inviting you all for the full day professional development day if you're available.
And I would say it's not too late.
Awesome.
Even if you can only come for a portion of the day, or if you want to join us for the opening panel session, we'd love to have you. Just send me an email.
Great. Any questions about the superintendent's report? I'd just like to personally congratulate our senior, Jack Lemming. What a great tribute that was as well.
Yeah, that was.
Like great kids.
Looking forward to spending a little time next week at the luncheon. So.
Great. And good luck to you all for your PD day. Thanks, Laura, for organizing.
And a shout out to our PD Planning Committee and the Department of Teaching and Learning and Superintendent Downing and Mr. Mulcairn and and everyone. It's definitely a group effort. There are a lot of moving parts. It takes a team, so we're grateful for our team.
Huge undertaking.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, guys, to new business. We have a plan design for our insurance plan, and perhaps we can hand this over to Superintendent Downey. You can maybe cue it up a little bit before
Yeah.
or after the motion.
Yeah, I'll just cue it up before the motion. As we had a discussion today in executive session regarding changes to the current health benefits plan. I would like to thank Mr. Keating, Ms. Gerson Gallagher, and everybody that participated on that team. It showed that our teachers are great partners in education with us, and how we're all working together to make sure we're putting fiscally responsive budgets together. So in that, we know that our insurance rates will continue at a 70-30 share. We'll be moving to a deductible model of $250 an individual, $500 for a family, with a reimbursement opportunity for employees on those deductibles through a mechanism that's designed in the budget. And that helped us be able to realize the reductions in anticipated costs that you saw reflected in the budget last week. So it's at this point that we would replicate the vote that occurred in executive session.
Excellent. So I'll turn to Amy for a motion.
I move to approve the recommendation of the Insurance Advisory Committee to change the plan design of the Blue Cross Health Insurance plans. The recommended plan design institutes an annual deductible for identified services in the amount of $250 for a member and $500 for a family. I further move to approve the Neshoba Regional School District to partially reimburse employees and retirees for the percentage of deductible costs as presented.
I'll second that. Any discussion or commentary?
Just one clarifying point that I think would be helpful to make in public session. Could you just remind us how much cost savings that brought to the budget?
Yeah,
This cycle?
the total cost of the budget package with offsets that were explained in others was a reduction of $390,000 in the benefit line, with an addition into the budget of a $50,000 reimbursement line for anticipated reimbursements when folks turn in those deductible reimbursements. So the net is a $340,000 benefit to the budget, and so we were very happy with our partners in the NREA who recognize that working together we can put it all together. So thank you.
And there's also recognized savings by the membership.
Yeah, there is a recognized savings by the membership. The total cost to the members, Mr. Mulcairn, I think you have the numbers. The total benefit reduction, I think, was 1.1%. That's not a reduction in the anticipated. That's a reduction in actual, which is rare when it comes to benefit packages to go down year over year. But again, when we did the analysis of the options, it seemed to be the logical pathway to go down.
Great. So
Did I
it
get
feels
that
like
number right, Mr. Mulcairn?
What did you say? 'Cause I was looking at my-
1.61%?
It's a negative 1.61%, correct.
Okay.
so it feels like a win-win.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So thanks to all of the people who worked on this, both our staff members who got together to benefit our budget, our administrative members who got together to benefit our budget, and benefit our towns. So it's great. All right, so if there's no further discussion, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of making this change? Okay, it is unanimous. Fantastic, thanks everyone. So the next matter for new business is the Student Opportunity Act presentation. I will let Kirk cue it up, but I think Laura's going to take the
Yes.
stage. Okay.
I'll be brief and try not to steal too many of Ms. Friend's words that I know she prepared so hard for. The Student Opportunity Act is a requirement of the state of Massachusetts that we'll have to fulfill. And so Ms. Friend is going to explain a little bit about that act and how we're applying the work of the school district, which you all are very familiar with by now, through the multiple presentations that you've had from the Teaching and Learning Office relative to this. I will say this, though. When we think of the Student Opportunity Act, there are multiple provisions in the Act. One of these provisions is the requirements to submit these plans. The other is around the funding formulas for schools. They are not tied together. They are parallel pathways. So as we've had a lot of discussion on Chapter 70 funds, and we got the minimum funding this year because of our reduction in enrollment, that does not forgive us from having to submit our 3-year Student Opportunity Act plan to the state. And so annually we're required, or every 3 years we're required to bring that in front of the committee to let you know what we're doing. It does not require a vote. It just requires that we've reported to the committee on the plan and give you an opportunity for any comment. So, Ms. Friend, how did I do?
You did great. It does require a vote.
Oh, it does require a vote. Maybe it's just the school council's.
I work not to disagree with the
Yeah.
superintendent.
So it does
There
require a
is.
vote.
It does.
Okay,
require
it requires a vote.
Yeah, so we'd be looking for a vote in a couple weeks. So, thank you, Superintendent Downing. I wrote in my notes that I'm pleased to share and show the Student Opportunity Act plan. I'm not quite sure that the verb is accurate because it doesn't come associated with additional funding for us to support the initiatives that we've outlined in the plan. So what we have done is really selected initiatives that we already have underway at Neshoba to support our strategic efforts and to meet DESE's SOA criteria and requirements. So that was the goal of the plan. I'm going to provide you an overview of the plan with this presentation. I know that you have the actual plan. It's long. There are a lot of words in the plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at the end, but the presentation is just strictly an overview of the framework of the plan, what we've selected, and what our intentions are. We will ask the school committee's approval, and we will ask you to vote on the plan on March 27th. The plan is due by us by April 1st. Here's the timeline that Superintendent Downing mentioned. This is a triannual requirement. We need to submit a new updated SOA plan every 3 years. So here's the plan for the current sequence of 3 years. We'll submit the new plan in April. We're required to annually review the plan and provide a written progress update to DESE. All of this is publicly available and could be found by any community member across the Commonwealth for any school district. And then in April of 2027, the district will be required to submit a new 3-year SOA plan. DESE provides districts with a pretty prescriptive process for developing their SOA plans. The process includes 4 defined steps. And they are here as follows. So I've outlined the 4 steps for you here. The DESE image in the bottom right-hand corner just indicates that I basically copied this word for word from the DESE guidance. On the subsequent slides, I will articulate to you how Neshoba has developed their plan in accordance with these 4 steps. These are the 4 steps. In a nutshell, the process involves looking at student data, specifically subgroup data, setting targets for improvements for those subgroups, engaging with families, selecting evidence-based programs and strategies provided by DESE. They provide a list from which districts are to choose to address the disparities and achievement gaps amongst the student groups, and then work to summarize the plan. That's it in a nutshell. So I'm going to talk the most about this slide because this really articulates the why. So there are many areas to focus on. We could focus on many areas. We have many growth areas. We are, committed to continual improvement. So while there are many areas in which we could focus, we have selected 2 areas as they are directly reflective of current priorities and efforts as they relate to initiatives that we've already brought forth to this committee, efforts that we've already brought forth to our larger community, and these will serve as the focus areas, of which there are 2, for our plan. Within page 1 and 2 of the plan itself, you will see a specific articulation of data analysis supporting the why of these 2 target areas, why we have identified them, and why they are supportive of our current efforts that we have engaged in our district. And they are as follows: K-5 literacy. And then the second focus area is around student engagement, which we have spoken about with this committee at the high school level. I'm going to speak in a moment about why chronic absenteeism is tied to engagement, but they're connected. In terms of literacy, the committee will likely remember in December that we presented data analysis reflecting our K-5 literacy needs through our literacy curriculum review process in our council. That data analysis included quantitative analysis, including MCAS analysis, star reading and early literacy data, student work, as well as qualitative data analysis, including faculty and staff surveys, and our use of thought exchange. The analysis reflected learning recovery evident for all students, all of our student groups combined, and for our Black, African American subgroup and our Asian and white subgroups. But there were disparities that we found in our data analysis, and those in 4 subgroups, and those 4 subgroups are listed here on the slide. Our students with disabilities, our English learners, our students from low-income households, and students who racially identify as Hispanic and Latino. In terms of engagement, the committee is aware of our work around engagement at the high school level, as we're aware of self-reported low engagement levels across all student groups at the high school. Work on student engagement at the high school is a priority. We are undergoing multiple efforts to address engagement through the curriculum review process, goal setting by departments, participation in the Kaleidoscope Initiative, DESI's Instructional Leadership Initiative, and our significant efforts to launch 2 Innovation Pathways programs and be recognized as an Innovation Pathways district. While work on student engagement remains a priority beyond the qualitative feedback that we receive through surveys such as Panorama, we have quantitative data that also reflects student experience and perceived connections to engagement, and that's where absenteeism comes in. And that's why we have connected these 2 types of data. Chronic absenteeism is a priority at the state level. You may very well be aware there's a PSA right now out there, and we also have increased weighting of attendance with accountability ratings beginning with our next set of MCAS. Neshoba has made some great gains in closing of gaps with our chronic absenteeism rates, but we have work to do. So thus our engagement and absenteeism is the second of our focus area and is intertwined. We've made solid gap closing in all student groups in terms of attendance at the high school, but data analysis again reflects continued disparities with these 4 subgroups. So these are our focus areas for the Student Opportunity Act. Step 2 requires utilizing performance targets connected with MCAS for the lowest performing student group as a starting point. And DESI outlines the importance of identifying ambitious, and those are DESI's terminology, ambitious 3-year targets. We do not select the targets, they're provided to us by DESI. DESI actually provides targets, 3-year targets and annual targets for all student groups, all student subgroups in different category areas. For example, MCAS, scale score, student growth percentile, absenteeism rates, etc. So I provided for you here what the targets that have been set forth by DESE are, our 3-year targets, and then what our annual targets are for our high needs student subgroups. These will be the targets that we will be reviewing when we annually review progress as it relates to our Student Opportunity Act. This will also be the data that we are reporting out on when we provide a progress report annually.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you just define absenteeism? Because
Yes.
32% sounds like a lot.
So absenteeism is defined as being absent 10% or more of days in attendance. So for a whole year of attendance, that would be 18. So for what that 32.6% is reflecting is that for our students in the high needs subgroup is a student who falls into 2 or more subgroup categories. For example, a student who is a student with disabilities and is a language learner, or a student from a low-income household who also is a student with disabilities is considered high needs. So 32.6% of our students who fall in the high needs subgroup, 2023 baseline,
More.
fall in the chronically absent. And that when you look at all students, you see the disparity.
Thank you.
That's not what our chronic absenteeism rate looks like for all students.
Thank you.
Step 3 involves engaging families and stakeholders in the target areas and feedback process. I've listed some of the ways we've engaged families and caregivers already in the process for you here on page 4 and 5 of the plan itself. There's 2 pages of list of ways we're engaging with families and caregivers, and will continue to do so as we improve our efforts there. I'll note that the last bullet point here is I will be meeting with our elementary school councils, and I met with our high school council 2 weeks ago on February 29th to review this plan, because our K-5 schools and our high school are the focus areas of our plan. In the process, I did reach out to the middle school principals and said, if you have space later on in the spring, I'd be happy to come talk to your school councils about what's happening at the elementary school and then what's ahead at the high school, particularly as they relate to the innovation pathways. So the next step and the final step is, given the identified target areas that a district has, districts were asked to select 2 focus areas and then evidence-based programs to address the performance discrepancies for those focus areas. So as I've mentioned, we have the 2 focus areas, K-5 literacy and engagement and absenteeism at the high school level. The next step was to identify evidence-based programs to support efforts to address those disparities and achievement gaps with our subgroups. And so they're listed here. We're required to identify 1. We have identified 2 at Neshoba. Inclusive curriculum adoption for K-5 literacy, and then the pursuit of high-quality secondary pathways and programs as an evidence-based program to further help support student engagement and relevance, and to hopefully create a stronger experience for students to see the relevance and be engaged, so that we see a reduction in the chronic absenteeism rate. So I fleshed out for you here the first focus area around inclusive curriculum adoption for K-5 literacy. I know the committee is very well aware of our curriculum review process for K-5 literacy, and it's highlighted for you here. DESE has actually identified 30 EBPs. Those are evidence-based programs that they have articulated are reflective of strong programmatic practice, which means they are likely to have the greatest impact on students when the essential elements are implemented. Within the 30 EBPs that they provide you to select from, the commissioner has identified 5 priority EBPs. Our Neshoba plan reflects 3 of these 5 priority EBPs as follows. Comprehensive approach to early literacy screening, and high quality secondary pathways. So once you've identified your focus area and you take a look at the 30 EBPs from which to choose, the district is then to select the EBPs, the evidence-based programs that best support that focus area. And you'll see 3 EBPs here to support our inclusive curriculum adoption. The first being our request and pursuit of adoption for high quality instructional materials for K-5. This in essence is our anticipated and hopeful curriculum adoption for K-5 literacy, which will provide strong Tier 1 curriculum for our teachers based on evidence-based practices in the science of reading. The second EBP is a comprehensive approach to early literacy, and that's essentially a plan. And at Neshoba, we have developed an early literacy action plan through a DESE-supported course that we took in the spring, and that was called Paving the Way for Reading Proficiency. That work helped us inform our MTSS structure, our PLC structure, and our wing time structure. While we're only in year 1 this year, we know that these structures will help further support our students, particularly our youngest learners. That's the comprehensive approach. And then the third EBP is supporting implementation, and that's high quality professional development, which will begin this Friday, where we are having Dr. Melissa Orkin out of Crafting Minds present to our K-2 teachers, instructional assistants, administrators, special educators, everyone involved in K-2 in one session, everyone involved for 3 through 5, and that will be a focus for those educators in a half-day session on Friday. The high-quality professional development will continue into next year. We'll include the integration of our continued instructional coaches and the implementation of look-for tools to ensure effective implementation and data collection and analysis of student subgroup performance. The second focus area is around our high-quality secondary pathways, and this in essence is our pursuit of innovation pathways designation, which with the chair's permission and Superintendent Downing's permission at some point when we hopefully receive designation and this grant, which we should hopefully here in April, we would be most honored to present an overview of the innovation pathways to the committee with the team. We are currently in the pursuit of 2 innovation pathways designations, 2 programs, advanced manufacturing and engineering, and business and finance. These efforts are directly tied to our efforts to increase relevance of the high school experience for our students. They will also include an anticipated integration of Project Lead the Way into our science curriculum and into our advanced manufacturing and engineering pathway. The addition of dual enrollment opportunities, which will provide more advanced options for students beyond our AP offerings, and essentially providing more on-ramps for access to advanced level courses for students who aren't currently able to access those. Not to mention providing real-world, relevant, hands-on experience through internship and capstone experiences, which is the culmination of the pathway during the senior year. As I am engaging and talking about this plan and really the initiatives that we have going on in K-5 and at the high school, I will be asking our groups next week, including CPAC. I've also asked to meet with CPAC, and that will be happening, I believe it's next Wednesday evening. And I already had my conversation with the high school. But what do you see as the greatest opportunities and challenges in meeting the needs of our targeted subgroups? And the second question is, what is the best way for us to keep those groups engaged in our annual review process? Do you want to be engaged, and what's the best way to do so? I just jotted down some notes to share with you, short notes about the high school feedback from the high school council, which, as you're aware, is comprised of parents and students and educators, and of course Dr. Boynton. The challenges that the high school council identified were really how to best engage families of students in our targeted all families and students in our targeted groups. The importance of making parents and caregivers aware of what's going on in different modalities and different ways. Working directly with students so students are aware and know that these opportunities are accessible to them. They shared with me their encouragement to explore expanding course offerings through VHS or virtual high school or the like, so the dual enrollment opportunities aligns with that thinking. And then one student on the council, when discussing the innovation pathways, said to me, I quoted, "I would have jumped at the chance for the innovation pathway in the real world application, and I know my friends would have too." So the last slide is how our Opportunity Act initiatives that we've chosen to lift in the plan are aligned with our strategic plan. And I just made a note, and Mr. Mulcairn and I spoke earlier this afternoon. It's just a reminder that the Student Opportunity Act plan is just that. It's a plan. It's a plan that will be reviewed and adjusted over time and done so on an annual basis. It is not a financial commitment. It's a plan. We have a strong strategic plan in the works, and we have leveraged our current efforts to develop Neshoba's SOA. We're definitely not starting from scratch, and there was a lot to work from when developing the plan that we present to you tonight. I recognize that was a lot of words. It's a lot of words. And the plan is quite dense. So hopefully that provided the committee an overview of the two focus areas and the specific initiatives, not all of the initiatives, but specific EVPs that are supportive of the initiatives and aligned with our strategic work.
Questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Friend. That was fantastic. The breadth of that is impressive, and I will appreciate watching you go into depth with it over time. Can I just ask you guys to quickly remind the community, and maybe even the board, and mostly me, can you talk a little bit more about the SOA? And like, you say that it's not a grant. It's required by Mass General Law. So this is something that all districts had to start doing in 2020? 2019. So it's pre-pandemic. Oops. And so then, but there were dollars associated with it at first.
Well, there's dollars associated for 6 years. And so it was first came into play in 2019, then SOA plans were put on hold for a year, which is why it's a little bit out of cycle, why we're actually 5 years apart than 3 years apart. So this is the second iteration of that. We got another one coming up in 3 years. So Yes, it involved a funding mechanism to look at Chapter 70 funding across the state and to begin closing that gap that towns were expressing and regional school districts were expressing as well, that they were getting farther away from ability to pay. Tracy Novak gave a great session on that at the MASS conference actually this year that I attended. So earlier I made a misstatement that I want to correct. This year, we did not receive additional funding for Student Opportunity Act dollars due to our decline in enrollment, but we have for 2 consecutive cycles to the benefit of almost $1.4 million of additional funding, which raised our baseline. You can never go down in your Chapter 70 dollars. So we benefit from that in perpetuity now. It's just we were hoping to continue to be on that train for 6 years to close that gap. So yes, it is part of just the requirement from state of Massachusetts. And
Forevermore.
yes,
You have to do this
Well,
on top of everything else.
these acts have to be reauthorized all the time. So if they were reauthorized by the state legislature, then yes.
And it's primarily focused on students in subgroups, you said. That's the purpose.
That's the goal, yes, is to address the disparities in achievement, attendance, with targeted subgroups.
And so one thing that I heard you talking about was that, yes, this is focused on the students who are in these subgroups, but it benefits all.
Yes,
Yes.
we believe that. That's
Yes.
great.
What other questions do we have? Joe?
Yeah, I have a question. I was perhaps this to the superintendent friend. Preface my remark by saying, in my work career, some of the stupidest and dumbest things I've ever heard were in public meetings. Ms. Masterson has heard some of my stories about some of the stupid things I've heard over the years. So this will probably chalk right up there with some of the stupidest questions you've ever heard. But forgive me for what I'm about to ask you.
This is a
because-
tremendous preface.
No, it's I'm always in awe of those who are keen to engage in the correct conjugation of Latin-based words. So on your last slide, you're talking about implementing clearly aligned and articulated curricula, and then engage in an audit of district-wide curriculum and conducting a curriculum revision cycle. So I'm just a little bit confused between the singular and the plural.
I'll have to consult with the authors of our strategic plan. That would be all of us. Yeah. That is from our strategic plan. So curricula,
Would be the plural of curriculum.
plural,
Right.
curriculum, singular.
So I just wanted, because you're bouncing back, this slide bounces back, and I'm like, am I missing something? All right, so it's,
Yeah.
okay, all right, never mind. It's a dumb question. So.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
What other questions do you have, Mike?
Going back to chronic absenteeism,
Yeah.
I know that this is a statewide issue, and I know that they sort of did an audit of all of the districts across the Commonwealth, but not all schools fall under the absence priority school designation. Some in our district, some aren't. How does that change our strategy on how to address it? And how are we held to account? Like if there's a school that is part of that grouping, how does the state sort of track progress being made to address that?
I don't know if Superintendent Downey,
I was
feel that he
anticipating this
wants-
question coming, so I pulled our data out.
Yeah. And may I?
Yes.
I would say that in large part, we received all of our accountability points for absenteeism for the last cycle of data, in large part. So we are closing the gap. What is not necessarily evident when we look straight value at our absenteeism rates is actually what I described with our high needs group. You're not necessarily going to see that significant disparity. Superintendent Downey is likely going to tell you that right now our chronic absenteeism rate at the high school, I don't know if that's where he's headed, but we're sitting right around 10%.
Right.
We want all students in school every day. Do you want to? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll give you some basic context. Our chronic absent rate as of today, live today, is 10.8%
As a district?
Yes.
as a district. Last year, after the conclusion of the month of April, it was 15.7. So we've improved by 4.9 percentage points over last year. When we look at our just straight daily, average daily attendance, the target is 95%. We're at 95.2 this year, as of today. Through the entire month of March last year, we were 94.3, so we're a percentage point improved there. And then when we look at another category called absent rate, meaning you've accumulated 18 absences to date. So when you have medical situations or school refusal situations, our number is 4.5% today. This time last year, at the conclusion of March, it was 10.7%. So the work being done, particularly at our high school, and I want to do a shout out to our high school administrative team that have put together a very intentional plan of working with students and families in combination with some of the programs like our bridge program at the high school to keep students in school has been effective and has dramatically improved our attendance year over year. But that doesn't mean we don't continue to look at that area.
So can I just ask a follow-up question? So is the state paying particular attention to those schools that fall under that designation?
I don't think the state looks at that finely at it. They're looking at
Yeah, I was just gonna.
the large numbers.
It's just a report out and the districts address it how they address it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. You might see some scenarios maybe with
They're
receivership.
reweighting the accountability.
Yeah, they are.
To,
Thank you.
to provide a higher weighting for attendance. So we will see that reflected in this year's accountability. Actually reducing proficiency and increasing the weight of attendance.
There is a lot of discussion in superintendent circles on that move this year as being a very unequitable move. So you can imagine that school districts that are predominantly white are not seeing the same effects as maybe a lot of our urban districts that are have larger populations of those identified categories other than white. So there's a lot of debate going on around the state's move on that feels like it could be an additional penalty to schools that are already, school systems that are already trying to overcome some significant challenges. So a compounding effect, if you will.
Just quickly on attendance, are you finding that are you tracking kids outside of subgroups as well? Because I know that attendance has just been a problem with, like post-COVID, with even vacations and things of that sort. Are we struggling in that regard?
We're doing quite well. 95% attendance rate, that is approximating our historical attendance rate pre-COVID.
Okay.
So we would hover in between 95 and 96 across our buildings.
And I will add that I think Superintendent Downing is looking at Schoolzilla dashboard. That is a component of our Renaissance Star Assessment, all of that suite. So our principals, deans have access to the Schoolzilla dashboard, which shows all of that data moving up and down every day. And you can even drill down and see student names associated with attendance data, not in addition to academic data.
Any vessels and then I'll go back to
Oh yeah, I'm excited about the innovation pathway stuff. I know, like talking to some of my own students with pathways at our school, one of the things that I wonder about with this is like they don't decide till later in high school that, oh, I'm interested in that. But then if you don't start early, like a number of kids have said that to me, like you have to start in 9th grade, and if you don't get on that, so I don't know if you're developing different on-ramps or ways that they can access it, so they don't feel like if I don't figure it out in 9th grade that this is the way I want to go, that I'm out of luck, kind of thing.
We're not there yet. I will say one of the priorities in developing the requirements, because The requirements include 2 technical courses, 2 advanced courses, creating a wide selection of baseline courses for students to try out if they're thinking about that area, so that they're not pinned down, have to stay in the pathway, but they've taken those baseline courses to see if it's actually something that they're interested in and they would like to pursue. Where I know some of the districts that we have spoken with, their pathway is pretty tight. There aren't a lot of options.
Yeah.
So creating like a broad baseline framework for an on-ramp.
Okay, I can ask the same
Yeah.
question. And then I guess I was also wondering, are you also then going to do a lot with kind of career, like the guidance, you know, at like the 8th grade level or something, like starting to really explore surveys and like figure out where kids might want to go, so they're already like really diving into that conversation before?
That's part of the MyCap. You may remember from last year we had talked about the development of a MyCap, My Career and Academic Profile, but beginning in 7th grade. And so our guidance department and our deans, and we even had a summer academy session to develop advisory curriculum to integrate into our 7th and 8th grade advisory. That's conversations, because it begins with interests, right, and awareness. And so we're working on it, beginning in 7th grade. And it's such a great age grade to start to continue to elevate those conversations with our 7th graders.
I had 2 things I wanted to ask about. One of them was the Innovation Pathway Program, and what the timeline was. Is it because it's in the plan that you just put together? Is that like a 3-year process that you hope that the pathway program is rolled out and like being implemented by?
So I can
end of that
explain the
3-year period?
timeline if I may give an overview. We have been working very hard, and a shout out to the high school team and Dr. Boynton and Mr. A and Mr. LeBlanc, who've been partners right there alongside with me. But we have been working on this since last spring. So we had applied for a planning grant. We used that planning grant to help develop vertical plans, offerings, marketing materials, communication efforts, etc. We then submitted a Part A application, and we were approved for the Part A. We submitted the Part B, then you move on to the Part B application. I think Superintendent Downing mentioned that he read it. It was 53 pages. Application is really large, multiple components, because I think that the Commonwealth wants to see you're actually invested in this. You know, this isn't an arbitrary decision. You really need to have little pieces in your plan in place. The last step in the process will be an interview, and our interview is actually next Friday. So myself, Dr. Boynton, Mr. A, and Mr. LeBlanc will be interviewed by the DESE team, and we should receive notification in April, early April, of whether or not we will receive the designation and the associated grant funding that we have requested to support our implementation, our full implementation in year 1. Beyond year 1, if you are designated as an Innovation Pathways District, it opens you up to other funding sources such as the Capital Skills Grant, the Perkins Grant, the 1-8 Foundation to support PLTW, and there's also an Innovation Pathways Sustaining Grants. So we are hopeful that we will receive the designation and the grant funding, and we should know more in April.
And is year 1 like next year?
Yes.
Awesome. That's awesome. My second question has to do with the feedback from the school councils and CPAC. And I just wanted to say that I was really glad that they were one of the, groups that you sought feedback from, because I think the school councils should be a part of this discussion, and they, because they have parent representation, they their feedback is important to this plan. So I know that you mentioned that you heard from the high school council. Have you met with the elementary school council
Next
yet?
week.
Next week, okay.
And CPAC next week as well.
Okay. My question was what the elementary school
And
council.
Principal Bates is talking to the Florence Sawyer School Council. I met with him, I shared the plan, and he was presenting it on my behalf tonight because it coincides with this meeting.
Okay.
But I've offered to come back and answer any questions they may have.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, Sean.
With regards to the high needs students, do you happen to know like what percentage of students fall under that, or how big that cohort is?
I think Superintendent Downing is pulling it up.
Repeat your question.
The high needs students designation, like how large a group of students is that?
That'd be difficult for me to pull up quickly, but I will work on it.
I can look, as the meeting progresses and share out our students with disabilities percentage, knowing that that is not necessarily our high needs group, is 18.9%.
So it's likely relatively small.
So I was
percentage.
smaller than that.
Although I will say that lately we've been talking about these percentages and how they're labeling districts high needs, and I was shocked how high the number was. It might be good for us to know what the percentage is in Neshoba. It might not be, but like I was noticing that Marlboro was like 70% high needs.
I feel like I asked this to
Mr. Mulcairn found it 29.6%.
Yeah, it's high.
Percent of the district statewide is 55.8%.
Yeah.
So to your point, very high.
It's not small. Go ahead, Sharon.
I just have a related question. Did you say that high needs, in order to be high needs, they need to be in two categories?
2 or more.
2 or more categories. So is it a different designation for complex learners?
Say that again.
Is it, so what you're saying is that in order to be considered high needs, you need to be in 2 or more of those categories. But there are some children that would have a high level of need, but may not fall into 2 categories. Though that's a different group. Okay.
That would be one that we would identify at the school level, right? This is the high needs is just a category from DESE, how they're identifying students.
So when DESE says 29 point something percent, it means that 29 point something percent in our district fall into 2 categories.
2 or more.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a quick comment, and it's about the Innovation Pathway Program, and I see here that we've identified 2.
Yes.
Once and if and once we get into this program, and can it proliferate?
Yes,
Can we
that's
grow
the-
pathways?
That is the goal.
Because the
Yes.
humanities-minded folks
Yes.
are really hopeful
I
that
hear you.
civics, the teachers who inspire so many of our kids
Guilty.
civically, because I mean, truly, Kevin, I'm going to call you out right now. Every single Viverito marks you as an inspiration. So, as they move into the high school, even though they might be also inspired by Mr. A and the DECA program, as we saw an enormous state following last week, and congrats to Mr. A for all of that, and Ms. Norton. I would love to see more humanities.
I concur.
All right, guys.
We'll vote at the next meeting.
We will. It's on the planning calendar. So thank you to Laura. Thank you, everybody. That was
Thank
very
you for your
enlightening.
patience.
It's our pleasure. Okay, guys, on to the next item on the agenda. And so we're moving into finance and operations. And we're going to talk, or rather seek, 4 different votes today, things that we've already discussed. And so would you like us to put a motion on the table first?
Well, I think we're going to start with just a brief presentation from Mr. Mulcairn, and then we'll entertain those motions if that
One at a time.
pleases the chair.
Oh, got it. All right, over to Ross.
Great. Thank you. So this is just a review of what was presented last week at the update on the budget meeting. So again, athletic fees, extracurricular fee, and parking fees. So these are the same figures that you saw last week with regards to our athletic fees at both the high school and middle school levels. I've added some data from Ms. Rich, our athletic director's reach out through the Midwatch. Not every Midwatch team or Midwatch school has fees. There are 2 schools that have no fees at all. Those are more high needs districts than us, and so I believe that may be for increasing participation. But for those that do charge, the first sport, and I put first sport in parentheses because not all have a sliding scale for the sports, but if you're going to participate, the average across those Midwatch leagues was $254. And then for the middle school respondents, I believe we had 5 out of 7 or 4 out of 7. The average on the Midwatch middle school athletic fee was $153. One of the schools is in line with us at about $50, but their school committee is also under consideration for raising their rate as well. With regards to extracurricular fee, no other data to present other than, as we said before, we do not charge a fee for extracurriculars right now, and we would only be looking at charging for those clubs and activities as defined by Superintendent Downing's remarks last week. And again, the parking fees, not in any recent memory would be looked at, so this increase is somewhat nominal. I can only speak to my own personal data, that this is definitely reasonable. However, it's still, I think, in line with, nominal increase. We'll be looking to prorate that monthly. As we know, not every kid needs a full year of a parking space, as they get their license or get their first vehicle or have a vehicle available. So, thank you. It's just a quick review for the committee before vote this evening.
So guys, I think what is best is if we go put the motion on the table and then discussion can happen within. Okay, so Amy, why don't you walk us down a path here. Let's start with the athletic fee proposal.
Okay, I move to approve the fiscal year 25 athletic fees of NRHS. First sport, $200, second sport, $175, third sport, $150, family cap, $1,000, and middle school athletic fees of $100 per sport.
I'll second that. What discussion do we have, if any? All right.
I have a question. I also have a statement that I wanted to make, but I was expecting it to be full. I wasn't expecting it to be broken apart, so I'm not really quite sure. My question is about the second.
The extracurricular, which is the next motion.
And then the statement that I wanted to make incorporates all of them. So I'm not really quite sure where the best place to put this is.
So the discussion on this motion, can you relegate it to athletics?
Well, wait, if it's not an athletics-related question, I'm not sure this is the right place to have that discussion, right?
What do you mean?
She said she had a question about extracurriculars, right?
Yeah, which can
So
happen
wait
then.
till that motion.
But
And then
she
she had a
has-
statement, it sounds like she had a statement about the whole budget.
No,
Not about the whole budget, about the fees
All the
Oh, okay.
schedule.
That include all of the fee schedules.
Maybe this is the right place for that.
Yeah, I think it's probably fine.
Okay. So I just wanted to make this statement that I support fees for extracurricular activities. However, the fee structure as proposed is inequitable. Fees for non-athletic activities are disproportionately high compared to proposed athletic fees. That is not to say that I don't support athletics, I do, but rather to point out that athletics are intensive in the amount of time that is required of anyone that's involved in any athletic activity, and they also carry high costs for things such as busing, equipment, uniforms, etc. The majority of other extracurricular activities meet once a week or perhaps 2 or 3 times a week for a short season. They do not incur the same level of cost. I wish that the fees had been proposed in a more equitable way, and I hope that going forward, more thoughtful support will be given to activities for our student artists, musicians, thespians, entrepreneurs, writers, all of those other students, so that every child has an opportunity to participate freely in an activity that inspires them.
Any other commentary? All right, so this is just to vote on the athletic fee proposal. All those in favor of this? Okay. Thanks, everybody. Now we will move on to the extracurricular fee proposal, and I'll turn to you for a motion.
I move to approve the fiscal year 25 extracurricular fee of $50 per extracurricular.
I'll second that. So Sharon's words ring, I'm sure.
I have a question
Go for it.
regarding that. There are currently some extracurricular offerings that are volunteer-led. Would a volunteer-led extracurricular offering have a fee associated with it?
The demarcation we're making is the service-oriented clubs versus the other clubs. In those two categories is how we define that.
Right, so then, in a club where there is a parent volunteer that runs the club, each student that's participating in that club would be asked to pay a fee to participate in that club. Although there is no expense to the district for that club in terms of a stipend because it is a volunteer-led club.
Is there a volunteer-led club you're referring to?
I know of one at least, yes.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a volunteer-led club.
Or maybe activity is
Yeah,
a
our
better
clubs
word.
our school-sponsored clubs are run through a schedule that's part of the negotiated agreement with the NREA, so we compensate for those clubs. I guess I would have to get more detail
Perhaps
on
I'm
that.
using the wrong term. Perhaps club isn't the right term. But it is an extracurricular
Yeah.
activity that is well-attended. It is led by a parent volunteer. There is no stipend associated with that.
Is it in the contract? Probably not.
So it
It's
may
not
not
on the
apply.
stipend schedule.
Maybe it doesn't apply.
So maybe
So
it doesn't
this
apply.
activity-
Which club are you referring to?
The drama club offered at MRE.
The drama club offered at MRE, is that part of our stipend schedule or our club
I'd have to
schedule?
pull up the contract specifically, but I would have to look into it a little bit further.
It is,
Yeah.
it is not a stipended position. It
Yeah.
is a volunteer that's running that program.
Is it a new
It is.
to MRE? So
As of last year.
as of this year or as of?
As of this year, yes.
Correct. So in the contract, it says essentially, and I don't have the language in front of me, essentially that new clubs that are proposed at, let's say, the elementary level, middle, or high school, the first year that they can be run on a trial basis to see if there's interest, and if there is, then it gets incorporated into stipends for the following year. Correct. And then therefore that person will receive a stipend. We do have several parents and/or community members that receive stipends for running our clubs and extracurriculars, and they are paid by the district through our stipend lines.
So may I ask a follow-up question? Last week, Jackie suggested that perhaps there would be opportunities where we could have extracurricular activities with parent volunteers running those activities. So my question again is, if you have a volunteer running the activity, will those kids be subject to a fee?
It's hard for me to project on that because we don't have any policies or structures built for that at the moment.
Yeah.
So that would be speculation on my part at the moment. So I don't think I can define that at this instant. But your point is well taken, and we'll look at that closely if that is in case a bridge that is needed to cross as well.
I guess that's a follow-up question that I have. We're proposing it for this year. Is this moving forward for future years?
This would establish that rate for fees for clubs.
But it could be rediscussed in the next budget cycle if I'm sure after Ross studies it and finds, it might not have an equitable impact, even though the intent was not that way.
Right.
The example that I was thinking about was that Emory has a long-standing tradition of running parent-led enrichment activities after school. And I don't know that it happened this year, but it has happened in previous years. And it's a way for, especially during the winter, for kids who maybe don't have access to sports or other activities in the community to be able to have some enrichment.
I would wonder if it's happening in the building, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, technically there is cost associated with that because do they pay the rental rate?
They do not.
So
It's volunteer.
You all are going to need to do a calculus on
Yeah.
is it actually budget neutral, and some sort of mediated process for that, for those activities.
And then it does come back to policy in some way and operations as well. So I just think being mindful of that.
Yeah.
Can I just want to ask a clarifying question and then suggest maybe a possible amendment to the motion? Because it sounds like the fees are proposed to fund the stipends or offset the stipends. So is it possible to amend the motion so that we're approving fees for extracurricular activities with stipended, somehow attach it to the stipends? Because I think that might solve the problem that Sharon and Jackie have raised. I would personally feel better about it too. And
Is the premise correct?
Yes, but I think there's some discussions based upon the dialogue that's happening tonight that I would want to have a conversation with our leaders in the NREA, because there are provisions contractually in which offering clubs and as being established practices as well. And I just want to make sure that all those procedures are being respected and adhered to as well, because I don't want to establish a piece here that could put us in a compromising position in an employee not being offered an opportunity to lead a club because the one who will do it for free is going to do the club. I don't think our teachers would or any of our employees that participate in those would look kindly on that. And I support them in that.
What's the budget impact of this proposal?
Total offsets are $50,000 towards our student activity, or extracurricular stipends across the district, which totals $278,000.
Did you say 278?
Mhm.
So this $50 fee is going to increase our income by $278,000.
50,000.
Okay, thank you.
Offset the cost of 278 by 50.
So I'd just like to ask, it sounds like we're not quite ready to vote on this, and it doesn't sound like it's critical to the budget. Can we delay this? Can we postpone this vote?
Well, the budget that was presented at the hearing and the budget that was being presented to you tonight includes that $50,000 offset to it.
I'd like to actually offer a little bit of a counter argument. I support this fee, and here's why. I think that, and this goes out to something I said last time, is that oftentimes the school budget, it lands on the entire public. And there were a lot of calls during the school vote that said the people who are actually using the school need to pay for the school. And so if my child's not using the drama program or the lacrosse team or whatever, what have you, can you just please put that somewhere else? And this is to the older taxpayers who, they want offsets. They said that to us very clearly. So whether or not the 50 is correct, I'm willing to go forward with it this year, knowing that this is a discussion point that needs to resurface. I think that whenever there is a contractual position, whether or not it's stipended, that the fee should apply to the students, even if it's on that 1 year trial basis. Again, I'm willing to go forward with this because I'm looking to create some relief for the people who don't actually use the schools. Although I also want to perhaps be a little bit more judicious in the way that we apply this, especially considering we have that very clear tiered approach toward the stipends in the contract. And maybe we can associate this fee a little bit more closely with that. Like the drama program requires a ton more. And I think that stipend is bigger than, say, student council, although that stipend's not
That's a
bad
service
either. Oh, it's a service club.
It's a service club.
And so I'm just saying, like, maybe next year we can revisit this, although I'm ready to go forward today.
Because it seems like maybe I use the term club, which then is adding some confusion to it. So I think that maybe club was not the right term. Maybe I should have used extracurricular activity or something to that, some other language than club. I think that I didn't realize that that had a particular connotation with it. And so I just wanted to clarify that there is a piece there that maybe language is getting in the way.
Joe?
Can I just, excuse me, piggyback off of your comments, Madam Chair? I too fully support an across-the-board extracurricular fee for any and all users of the facility, whether it be a club or an extracurricular organization. And I think that, frankly, it's suspect to even suggest that there's any sort of cost neutrality or cost savings to the district. If the building is open and students and parent volunteers are in it, this district's incurring costs. Utility costs, heating costs, custodial material costs, insurance costs. If the building is open, we're incurring costs. If the building is not open, the lights are off, the heat is decreased, and you usually have maybe a security guard on duty. So I would fully support what you're saying here, and I don't see anywhere where this would ever be cost neutral to our district.
Any other comments? Thanks, Joe. All right, guys, so we have a motion on the table, and we are going to go forward with it. All those in favor of supporting this extracurricular fee, raise your hand. Okay, everybody. Recognizing those not in favor, raise your hand. Are there any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Were you yes or no? I was a no.
So this is something for next year for sure. All right, everybody, let's go on to the next piece here, and that's the parking fee proposal.
I move to approve the fiscal year 25 Neshoba Regional High School student parking fee of $100, prorated monthly.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All right, less controversial.
Actually, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Jackie.
This is ridiculous. No, they don't paint their spots, do they? Okay, I was just curious.
All right. All those in favor of this motion? Thank you very much. And moving on to the next item here, no small item, and that is the FY25 budget vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are pleased to bring you a very brief presentation on the budget tonight, as you've gone through some very lengthy presentations on the budget in recent meetings. And once again, I'll turn it over to our Finance and Operations Director, Ross Mulcairn.
Thank you, everyone. And I do sincerely thank the school committee, not only for the opportunity this evening, but for the time and attention paid to the FY25 budget building process. Also to Budget and Warrant Subcommittee as well, for their time and attention to the budget. I do want to take a quick, I don't know if I can click on that, because Masterson, can you click on that, and then we'll hold on hitting play. As you're aware, yep, just hold right there. So as you're aware, we're working on a transparency center. Superintendent Downing was presented a resource out in the educational community that is able to produce videos for us. So we produced one of probably a set of 3 or 4 videos that will be headers on our transparency site and sort of entry points to the public for looking at and understanding aspects of our finances as a district. So this is not a fully edited video at this point. We have a couple more adjustments to make, but we felt it important that since we received it this afternoon, we'd share with the school committee to give you a preview of what's to come for our transparency site. So, Olivia, if you could hit play, I'm hoping the sound's loud enough.
Entertainment.
Welcome to Neshoba Community. In this video, we'll guide you through the budgeting process that we use each fiscal year. We'll give an overview of what makes up our budget, the the groups that play a role in its creation, and the NRSC budget.
Now the sound went away.
Yeah, I have lots.
Yeah,
of
there's,
those.
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll restart.
I can't close my eyes.
There you
Ruin the
go.
surprise.
And our overall enrollment.
When you
Our
clicked on the one where there was an
non-salary.
X on it, so I think it was turned off. The other output.
Shondor, help us!
Isn't it supposed to be Calgon, take me away?
Yeah. There we go.
That's the right one.
You're gonna try.
Yeah, let's give it a
It
whirl.
was on the 2.
Nope.
Oh. It's like me at town meeting.
Oh, we're killing the moment.
Isn't the TV volume working?
Yeah, but if you're operating from that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm plugged into both.
Okay.
Just crank the TV up.
It is up pretty
Now
high.
it's gone. You're good.
It's not, it wouldn't give us speakers, it would give us it should work on the split.
But it's muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, see the X? Is that not?
Yeah, you're
There you
There you go.
Careful.
There you go.
Oh, careful now.
Classroom material.
Are we ready now?
Are you not entertained?
Okay, here we go.
Enjoy.
Neshoba community. In this video, we'll guide you through the budgeting process that we use each fiscal year. We'll give an overview of what makes up our budget, the groups that play a role in its creation, and the NRSD budget timeline. Let's dive in to show how our school budget is put together. Our budget has two main parts, salary and non-salary. Salaries are, of course, what we need to pay our staff, from teachers to administrators to support staff. This depends on how many students we have, how big our classes are, and our overall enrollment. Our non-salary portion of the budget includes everything else, like classroom materials, keeping our buildings in shape, and getting our students from home to school and back. Did you know salaries, insurance, and benefits take up about 80% of our budget? The rest, that's 20%, covers non-salary costs. So where does money for Neshoba's budget come from? There are four main sources. The first source of budget funds comes from our towns. Each town has a minimum amount they need to contribute to the district budget. This is set by the state each year, and it's called the minimum local contribution. The second source of funding for Neshoba's budget comes from the Commonwealth, Chapter 70 Educational Aid. All districts receive Chapter 70 Educational Aid based on a formula the state uses to support an equitable education. The third source of money for our budget is a combination of other revenue sources. These sources can include, but are not limited to, reimbursements, earnings on investment, and an appropriation of the Excess and Deficiency Fund. The fourth funding source for Neshoba's budget is the variable assessment to each town. The calculation for each town's share is based on a 5-year rolling average of student enrollment from each of the member towns as outlined in the Neshoba Regional School District Agreement. Creating Neshoba's school budget is a team effort. Here's how it works. Our superintendent and director of finance and operations get the ball rolling just as the school year starts. They set the timeline and guide the team in setting budget priorities that meet our strategic plan while being fiscally responsible. They also present a budget timeline to the school committee in early October that lays out the major benchmarks to create a budget that supports the mission, vision, and core values of our district as a whole. From October to January, our school administration team is busy drafting the budget. School principals and department directors pitch in. They start with what they need for their teams and schools, like staff and supplies. Then they sit down with the superintendent and the finance director to fine-tune these ideas, making sure that we're staying on track with our goals and our budget. From January to March, the school committee reviews the draft budget and suggests changes during a series of budget workshops. They get a close look at what we're planning to spend and the money we expect to come in. Their job is to make sure everything lines up with our strategic plan and that we're being fiscally responsible. It's not just us in the school who have a say in Neshoba's budget. We also work with town administrators and the finance committees and boards of each of our towns. They give us extra feedback and ask important questions about our budget. Town residents have the opportunity to provide feedback and ask questions at an annual public hearing hosted by the school committee, as required in Massachusetts general law. The school committee then votes on the proposed budget. And here's where you come in, the community. At the end of this process, each town will hold their annual town meeting. This is where you get to vote on the budget we've put together and that the school committee has approved. Thank you for spending time learning about how we create our budget. If you're curious to learn more about this year's budget and the process behind it, check out our Finance and Operations page and our school committee page.
I was definitely expecting to hear Ross or Kirk's voice, but that guy was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was good.
We built it with the idea that it should live without the dependence of a person in the seat, because it's about the information, not about the person sitting there.
And if you're following the graphic on the revenue sources, the proportions are not.
It was difficult to comprehend the
Some more minor edits. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present the budget this evening for FY25. Sort of as the video also showed in detail, you can see the work that's been done, and I know that I keep calling back to this, and I also would not omit this because it does show the scope of the work that began even prior to the timeline, because we're building the timeline and thinking about the work that needs to happen ahead. In the slides for this evening are the updates that we've been providing to the school committee along the way. If the public wants to click on any of those other color, the budget workshop or the update links, it will take you right to the school committee meeting materials for that night, so you can review the budget and the update slides. So as you're aware, the proposed budget for this evening for FY25 for your approval is considered. The operating budget at $66,520,432. Adding in our debt service and our lease brings the total budget to $69,255,891, representing a 6.71% change over FY24's voted budget. Obviously, there's an increase on our debt service, which is why we've shown the breakup between operating and debt moving forward as we continue with our high school. Again, we presented the breakdown of the assessments differently this year to make sure we highlighted the debt service, but also the operating. What is it actually costing to run our schools outside of our debt payments, as well as what the total assessments are to each of our towns. So with that, done with my short presentation this evening. And again, thank you not only for your time this evening, but along the way in the budget season. So thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Quick question. The transparency page is not yet operational, right?
Under construction.
Under construction.
Our
Okay.
extended learning coordinator / communication specialist is working closely on the construction of that behind the curtain, so that'll be, we're gonna hopefully get that launched. We're gonna get that launched before the town meetings. So we can have everything lined up there. Doesn't mean every button we're planning there is that we're planning for might be ready by that date, but we want to have it in time for town meetings.
Just a very quick recommendation. The presentation that you gave your first year, the budget presentation you gave that year, I found to be the most informative. Only because it was the foundational presentations, right? Like you built on it every year. For somebody who's new and didn't experience that, I constantly point people back to that one with the buckets. And if you could include that, like go all the way back to the beginning, of Kirk.
Is that the one with all the enrollment?
Yes. Yes, with the census data. And
Do you
like,
know how badly I'm going to pay for that one later?
but it included like an explanation of what the variable assessment is. What is minimum local contribution? It breaks it all down.
We're going to have archived into the work that we've done over the last few years through the budget season, so that's in the works.
Great.
To add to your point, though, a member of the Lancaster Finance Committee contacted me last year about budget, and I said, look at that presentation. It will really give you a good overview of all of the different players and all of the different pieces involved. And she got back to me afterwards and said that was incredibly helpful. It really brought the whole thing into a good perspective. So I do think that even if the data in it isn't necessarily current, the information is very valuable.
So when we build it, as we construct videos similar to this, we'll have also the supporting documents behind it. So,
It's exciting. Great job.
thank you.
Mike.
We should mention that video was dynamite. and I personally found the voiceover both soothing and reassuring. That was outstanding. That was really, really something special. But my comment is kind of about the budget. This year, I mean, every year is kind of a difficult budget season. This year felt particularly challenging because of our lower Chapter 70 projections, our out-of-district placements, transportation, and it all kind of blindsided us. And if you've been following the budget updates, you can see that we initially projected much higher, and we got much lower. And my comment is that to pull in excess of $1.5 million from a roughly $66 million budget is really quite difficult. And doing it was not some sort of cheap parlor trick or a sleight of hand. If people who were on this committee last year think back, these were all very intentional, strategic decisions that were made by the district in order to create a more stable and fiscally responsible budget. We had, so in other words, we would not have been able to meet the town's needs, all three towns' needs, if we had not invested in a healthy E&D. We were able to tap into that, and that was a decision that was made early on. We would not have been able to meet the town's needs had we not voted on generating more revenue through school choice. We would not have been able to meet the needs of our towns if we didn't have this amicable bargaining climate that has been sort of defining central office leadership. So these are all things that we did. At the time they seemed like a responsible thing, and now we're sort of kind of harvesting the fruits of those decisions. And that was no small task. So I just want to thank the superintendent and the director of finance and operations, and really your entire staff. That was a really challenging couple of months, and I'm just very impressed.
So, words from our budget and warrant chair, Mike. Thanks so much. You have also been integral in pushing this evolution, and so we thank you as well and all of your leadership.
Can I add one last thing?
Please.
I just want to make sure it's recognized as well that our partners that are in our bargaining unit, the leadership of our bargaining units, were instrumental in that as well.
So a lot of goodwill, a lot of great leadership, and good ideas. So we're all grateful. Let's put a motion on the floor, and then we can take further discussion if we have any.
Okay, I move to approve the Neshoba Regional School District fiscal year 25 budget in the amount of $69,255,891, which is a 6.71% increase.
I'll second that. Any other discussion on this?
Fully in the leading question department. On the last slide, the increases for each of the three towns was a different percentage. And I know that is very confusing to my neighbors. I was wondering if someone could take a moment just to address why that is and explain why they're not the same.
Madam Chair referred to a 78-page slide deck presentation that gets into that. I'll tell you the simplest way is that each of our towns have a different equalization value, and that equalization value is based on the total assets of the town. Bolton and Stowe are at the statutory limit of 82.5%, whereas right now Lancaster is hovering somewhere around the 68 to 70% level. So there's more ceiling for Lancaster's annual minimum local contribution to rise, whereas there isn't space for Stowe's and Bolton's to rise in the same way. It's just their valuation. Second piece is enrollment has an impact. So as the 5-year enrollment averages change, we've seen the percentage of students participating in the regional school district at Lancaster is rising in proportion to the students in Bolton and Stowe. I think those are the two greatest factors that impact the difference of that.
Well, it sort of explains why Lancaster's higher than Bolton. It doesn't really explain why Bolton's higher than Stowe.
It does in terms of the enrollment and the participation, as we've seen that decline. The enrollment impact in Stowe, which you'll get a very detailed presentation on at our school of choice hearing this year, really reflects that.
And I'll just add to that and say that, and remind everybody that the percentages are what we tend to focus on, but that if you look at the numbers, Stowe still has the largest number, right? The largest dollar amount. So we are paying for the schools. We are paying more for the schools, but the rate of increase is higher for Bolton and especially Lancaster for the reasons that Kirk just identified. Any other questions about the budget?
I think in the motion, did you say the increase is 6%?
I said 6.71, which is the total,
Or the average, or the percent
That's
from
the total,
between,
including the debt.
That includes
including the debt of the total budget.
from last year's
From
budget
last
to this
year's
year's
budget
budget.
to this year.
Okay, so,
It's not shown on that side.
right, I guess, is there a differentiation between the operating budget and the total?
right up there.
Because, right, but maybe it's just irrelevant. I'm trying to make sure I understand. Because the debt service, we don't have any control over at this point. We've already agreed to that.
Correct.
Right, so what we have the control over is the operating budget, and that increase has been brought down to 3.52% from where it started at 6-point-something%. Right?
Which is the second lowest percentage increase of the last 6 years.
Okay.
Do you want that clarification in the motion or something to call out the operation?
I just want it to be clear that there are two components here, and that the budget increase, the operating budget increase, the part we have control over, has been brought down to 3.52%. As long as that's clear. I don't need it to be formal, I just want it to be clear.
Okay, everybody's good? Scott?
I have a statement. So I'd like to start by commending our dedicated school administration. Their tireless efforts have resulted in a budget that not only meets the needs of our students, but also addresses the requests of our towns. Their commitment to transparency and collaboration has also been evident and appreciated, so thank you. The proposed budget allocates resources to enhance classrooms, technology, support professional development for educators, and maintain our extracurricular programs. And our administrators have navigated this complex process with skill and foresight. However, it is essential to address the pressing issue, and this isn't the first time I brought this up, but the district's reliance on excess and deficiency or E&D. While it may seem like a convenient way to balance the books, I just want to remind everyone it's not sustainable to use E&D going forward. So we cannot perpetually rely on that lever to save money, as it were. Over the last few years, we've been able to spend about $1.2 million per year from E&D and still build up a balance of about $2.4 million. Whereas we increased the E&D this year to $1.4 million, and by doing so, we're kind of starting down a dangerous path. So we already run a tight budget, coming in about $500,000 under budget for the last few years, but it only takes one bad winter, for example, to increase fuel and snow removal costs that could potentially wipe out that surplus. So if we continue to increase our use of E&D, not only will we deplete those funds, but it could lead to higher borrowing costs associated with the new high school building. So the elevated inflation of the last few years is starting to catch up to our expenses, and the administration has been able to find savings to bring in budgets at a level that avoids using overrides. But I think they've exhausted those levers, and so over the coming years we may need to use overrides to ensure the continued high quality of our schools. So in conclusion, I just want to appreciate the hard work of the administration, but also acknowledge the limitation of the E&D budgets and accept the potential need for future overrides to continue to ensure the high quality education that we enjoy in this district.
Thanks, Scott.
May I piggyback on that? To reiterate, thank you for all of the hard work that Scott so eloquently spoke of. And this is going to piggyback on what Scott said in a very similar way, but because my brain learns differently than maybe other brains, just to give a visual kind of idea to that is that for many years we have kept the budget increases at the 2.5%, 3.5% increase at the request of the towns, so that our budgets are increasing like this. At the same time, the costs are increasing like this. And so what's happening is that over time, we're getting further and further apart. And as Scott was saying, we've reached the limit. If we have not yet, we are close reaching the point where this isn't sustainable. We don't have the ability to keep at this increase level when costs are increasing like this. And that is something that we will have to address at some point, likely before too long.
Thanks, Sharon. All right, everybody. Any further discussion? So it's time to take the vote on the motion on the table for the FY25 budget. All those in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous. Well done. Whew. All right, everybody. With that behind us, we have no unfinished business. We're going to move on to subcommittee reports before we say adieu. So let's ask budget and warrant. Anything further that you would like to share, Mike?
We had a brief meeting last Thursday to provide anyone in the township who might have any questions regarding the budget to attend and ask them. We had each of the committee members had a couple questions, clarifying questions, but other than that, that's the only thing we've done since our last meeting.
Great, thanks. And thanks for offering that. Communication subcommittee.
Communication met last week, and we are pulling together details and are getting ready, very close to being able to present that to you.
Amazing.
And good luck with slogging through that.
Sharon sent me a very big email, and I said, this is going to take me a few days, Sharon. So the ball is definitely in my court, so thanks for that. To the school building committee.
I'm going to take a moment, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. I've got a couple things I want to address with the building district committee. So initially, our next meeting is scheduled for next Thursday, March 21st, 2024. As had been previewed at our district committee meeting on the 28th, I'm announcing right now that we will be addressing what might be a potentially controversial issue, which is the bathroom design. That is on the agenda for the 21st. In that regard, our consultants will be presenting their design proposals. I have offered one of our members who has expressed some concern regarding the design an opportunity to also be heard in regards to perhaps an alternate or a contrary design proposal. In this regard, I will let the committee know and the public know as well that first and foremost, design decisions are the exclusive domain of the building committee. So in that regard, there will be no public comment, there will be no public hearing or public inquiry of the design proposals on the 21st. I will I've discussed this with our recording secretary, make adjustments to the agenda. If I do receive a number of requests for public comment on bathroom designs, and what we'll do is we'll park that behind the presentations. I will allow public comment, not public inquiry, no scrutiny. You can tell them you can say it 3 minutes of what you want to say on regards to the bathroom, but I'm leaving it at that. I am leaving the option open to the building committee members if they want to make this a matter of public input or public forum. That was also proposed as well. That's going to be the prerogative of the membership. But if members of the public do come on the 21st, they will not be permitted to inquire of our consultants or our members at the 21st. Again, if the building committee wants to vote to open this up to public inquiry for our April meeting or later, that's the prerogative, but there'll be no inquiry, and I'll just say it right here now, that notice and opportunity to be heard are the cornerstones of our due process system. I'm putting people on notice right now that I will not entertain any requests from any member of the public who shows up to make inquiry, nor will I entertain any motions from the members on the 21st to allow members of the public on the 21st to inquire of this matter. Again, if members, because I don't want any member of the public to feel aggrieved that they didn't show up to ask questions because I made this comment at this meeting. So after the 21st, whatever happens, happens, but on the 21st, we will be discussing this issue, and it will, at this moment, be kept within the exclusive domain of the building committee. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Joe, for that. Very clear. Over to personnel.
No report.
Very good. Over to policy.
So we met last week and we looked at the two new school lunch policies, so they're ready to go. So we have like 12 policies to show you. And then we also have like 102 that we're looking at that are amended that we've made about a quarter of the way through that we'll have to show people. Yeah, so there's a lot coming down the road here, yeah. So just like a heads up on that. And then
Did you say
we're
that
gonna
there are 2 school lunch policies, or
2 and then 10 technology policies that I already talked to you about, so we can bundle that together if you want. The school lunch will, a lot of the changes are small.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's those 12, and then we have some other ones. I think we've made it through maybe like 15, I don't know. The other night we looked at several, but we're working our way through, like, we'll be up to about 30 pretty soon, I would say. We've got a lot on the table. And then we're also going to discuss next month the communications policy, parent communication policy.
That was my question.
Yep.
awesome.
Whatever happened with that? Okay.
Fantastic. Thanks, Amy,
Yep.
for that yeoman's work. And to your whole committee. So over to audit advisory. Dana couldn't be with us tonight. She is away on business, and so I don't think anybody else has a report for audit. Nope. Let's go over to Dear Jay.
No report.
All right. Moving right along. Over to CPAC.
No report.
Okay. And we have the OPEB Management Advisory Committee there, but it no longer needs to be there.
I must have copied an old agenda.
Yeah. Small price to pay for your amazing leadership on the agenda, leader. So I'm going to put that stuff on the planning calendar. Anything else you guys are hoping to have into the planning calendar? As always, let me know if you have anything come Wednesday when Kirk and I meet. I'm happy to put it on my list. If nothing further, I'm going to move to adjourn.
Second.
Ooh, Amy beat you. All those in favor?
Who seconded that?
Amy Cohen. That was unanimous. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.